Life is really governed by unspoken rules. As someone who has been full-time in my freelance business and now I'm scaling it to an agency, I have really picked up on some things that it's like you would only know this until once you start the journey, but Lord knows it would have helped to understand these things a bit earlier on. I think people love to give motivation and there's all these motivational quotes, but it's those unspoken rules that really will set you apart. Number one, yeah, boring is what gets you ahead. It's the boring, mundane tasks that get you ahead. It's the repetition, and repetition of the same thing can be so boring. For example, say it was weight loss. You want to lose weight. And people know that, you don't need to do 10 to 20 different exercises. It's usually the same 5 to 10 exercises in rotation consistently 3 to 5 times a week for 12 weeks or so. It's mundane, it's boring. And right now we're in an era where people are so stimulated. And that's why on one hand, you can get so much further ahead than your counterparts because everybody's relying on being stimulated. And if you can learn to endure the boringness, like if you can train your brain to not seek out stimulation from the moment you get up to the time you sleep, you will be ahead of most people. One of the things I really do believe is that there will be that wiping out of the middle class. That is something I do believe, because with technology and how it's frying people's brains because they're just on it from daytime to nighttime. I'm saying this as someone who I work in marketing. My business is in marketing. I understand how detrimental social can be. Because I'm at the back end of it. It can be so productive, but it can also be very detrimental. Hence why I like to keep my videos short and concise and quick, because I do believe I value people. I don't want them to be spending all the time watching things. I want you to execute above everything. When it comes to being overly stimulated, that slows you down in life. You need to be able to do the boring things, the sending of the emails, the repetitive, recording certain content and editing it, and all of these things that can be quite boring. Even if it's just when it comes to wealth building and investing and saving, and it's boring. I'd rather splash the cash, take a trip. But it's the boring stuff that will get me ahead. That's why even people say, the businesses, there's so many businesses that people don't realize make so much money. Everyone wants to start a lash business and a clothing brand, but it's the boring businesses. Someone is making stupid money selling tissue paper. Someone is making stupid money selling plastic containers wholesale. It is the boring that puts you ahead. And so that's one of the things I'm really learning to double down on, is be bored a bit more. Allow yourself to be bored. Allow yourself to train yourself. Put the timer on and just allow yourself to do the work. Let go of all your emotions and how you feel about it. Just allow yourself to be bored a bit more. And that kind of goes on to my second point about just discipline. Now more than ever, people can be very successful. We are in I feel like this was the era, this era reminds me of maybe when drop shipping launched and it was a hype, or it's a golden era, or when the internet had just come about. AI has changed the game and we're in the genesis of it. If you can learn these skills, if you can learn digital marketing, if you can pick up a skill set, as I said, there will be that wiping out of the middle class. I truly believe it. And what side are you going to be on? Are you going to have the money, or are you going to be broke because you were just focused on being overly stimulated and living in the moment? Most people are operating on mood, and being overstimulated worsens that, because now you're just always craving to feel good rather than to create a life that you don't have to escape from. I think especially in today's world, everybody is a lot more emotional and a lot more sensitive. And, I've seen a lot of the negative discourse about hustle culture. It's bad. And I'm like, you have to see, when you are online, one of the things I preach is being a conscious consumer. When you hear people say, oh, being a hustler is not healthy and this, that, and the third, just look at the person's life. Look at if they're trying to sell you something, right? And make a judgment based on that. Do not just listen to what people say verbatim. Do your own studies and ask yourself, what do you want out of this life? And reverse engineer that. Because remember, hustling is meant to be for a season. It's not meant to be that you, from the day you're born to the day you die, you hustle. The goal is that you hustle to get yourself to a better place where then you can, if you want to be on a cruise mode, you can, or if you want to do other things, you can. I really find the demonization of hustling really odd and very delusional, because it's going to take hard work to create a life you love. For most of us are not nepo babies. Most of us don't have things handed to us on a silver plate. We're going to have to work. It's just about understanding that it's seasonal. It's not a lifetime. I understand it's unhealthy if that's all you do from, but even that, it's debatable. We're saying that, but there's someone who hustles and that's actually they enjoy it. That's what they like to do. That's what gives them life and purpose and meaning. So there is no, I don't really feel that there are these absolutes that we try to, or the world, certain people try to depict. It's just the way people self-soothe from their laziness and their lack of productivity to be like, oh, that's bad. People always want to demonize what makes them feel bad about themselves. Perception is reality. Like, I will do another video about being a Black woman, period, in business and in life, because my God, there's been so much I've learned. But what I will say is perception is reality. It's everything. And how I mean this in today's video is more about not just how you present yourself. I think that's an obvious one. If you want to try and fight that current, good luck to you, you know? And to a degree, some people do win because they build a brand off of then being kind of ghetto or whatever. But see, perception still reigns. You got to be really careful how you show up in the world. I think it's good to be mindful. And again, it's not, because I know some woke people love to then say this is respectability politics. And I think, again, I call that delusion. I think we live in a real world. Let's be pragmatic. I'm so big on pragmatism. This channel is pragmatism. I'm a spiritual babe, but I live in a real world. I understand how the spiritual plane applies to the physical plane, and I respect that. But another part of perception is reality is, and what I was linking to as a Black woman is that you may be told or feel that certain things are disadvantages, whether it's just being the Black girl or the young girl. And that's why I'm saying, when I say perception is reality, you need to perceive every disadvantage you think you have as an advantage. Every single one. This is why I'm saying your best thoughts create your reality. You have to pick apart, okay, I've seen that this is a disadvantage. Let me talk about me being a Black woman. Okay, you know what, in certain rooms, you can tell that, you know, people prefer their own people and stuff like that. I'm just going to keep it a buck. And I've definitely felt like, okay, undermined by certain, even people in my own community, because I'm young, or sometimes people look at you and you're attractive and then they might think you're dumb, or they might think they're just trying to humble you. Because I'm telling you, one thing about business, it's like school. People make things personal. Like, people are projecting their own wounds on you at all times. So there's certain things you just go through and you're like, what the heck? And so it can, that, if you perceive it as a disadvantage, what will happen is then you start to retreat from life. You start to go back into the, you know, when Homer Simpson goes into the bush like that, you start to do that because you're like, oh, the world is against me, kind of thing. Rather than saying, you know what? For me, what I realized is being a Black woman is my advantage. Because as a woman, naturally, some people think you don't know as much, misogyny. So they're like trying to teach you and help you if they like you. So yeah, tick. That's an advantage. Another thing is just being the underdog. I feel like that's been the advantage, is that no one really sees like that I have motion, and you can fly under the radar in certain ways. And I think it's good when you're not always so much in the limelight. I think there's an advantage to that. So my point is just everything that you go through, see it as an advantage. See it as, okay, how can I make this work for me? Always ask yourself that question. How can I make this situation work for me, because there is a way. That's why, I'm not religious, but I like esotericism. And in the Bible, it says, what the devil meant for evil, God turned to good. It means energy is not static. You can transform things. That's why we talk about alchemy and transmuting, because it can come to you a certain way. You don't have to receive it that way. Someone being directly rude, disrespectful can come a certain way, and you can turn it around for your good. You can make it work for yourself. Another rule is about proximity. Proximity. And this is where it really boils down to knowing who you are, knowing what God has blessed you with, like your gifts, what you're called to, because this determines proximity, who you allow around you, and what rooms you enter, where you should be, who you should be trying to what circles you should be trying to kind of infiltrate. It's a lesson learned, and it's a journey, to be honest, but I think it's so important to understand proximity, understand your value, understand why you're here and what you're here for. The reason I say this is because, of course, this whole world is made up of energy. People are energy. We all boil down and it's just energy. When you have a purpose or whatever you're trying to do in your life, you need to be very aware of the energies around you. And that's why we talk about proximity. You do not want a Judas in your court. Unless that Judas in the sense of, with Jesus, I guess Judas, it was needed for what happened in that storyline. But ideally, you don't want a Judas in your court. Or if you do have a Judas, then they're a Judas. They're going to betray you. You know what I mean? You need to be very aware of the energies, because it affects your work. It affects your execution. Just because you can't see it doesn't mean it's not happening. Be mindful, especially with how spiteful people can be. You need to be so mindful. And this is not to then, I know some people get so up their own and then they're like, oh, these monitoring spirits, everyone's attacking me. No, this isn't that. It's not so you start to retreat and think, oh my gosh, everyone's out to get me. That's why I'm saying it's more about having the awareness, so you can be strategic in who you keep close to you, who you keep a bit further out, and who you completely cut off. That can be friends, that can be family, that can be work environments. For me, I knew I can't be in one place too long. I'm just not that type of person. It's good to know thyself, so you understand what and who and where concerning your surroundings. You need to understand what works for you and what doesn't, because energy, it never lies and it will always reveal itself. Lastly, I'm gonna say consistency beats everything. It's a cliche one, and I do think people do talk about this, but I don't think it's really, until you go on that journey yourself in whatever you do, you will never really understand how. That's why everyone's hammering it into your head now, trying to help you. And sometimes you won't listen because it doesn't apply to you. And that's why the journey is so important. One thing I will say is, we can all talk. We can all talk about how to do this, what to do. Nothing beats the journey. Maybe that should be the final thing I say, actually, instead of the consistency. Nothing beats the journey. Nothing beats doing it yourself. Because when you do it yourself, you develop in terms of understanding who you are, understanding what you're about, understanding your work ethic, understanding where you fall short. It's so important to just do things yourself. It's so important to just try. That's why it's some women and men, you get stuck in procrastinating or masturbating over things and just going round and round and round instead of execution. That execution is so powerful. I just heard someone say, if you do 1% more every day, by the end of the year, that's 365%. And I'd never heard it like that. And now that I've heard it like that, I'm like, you see the power of just showing up for yourself, doing. The power is in the doing. You will learn, you will grow, you will evolve, and you'll be refined by doing. So always just keep doing more. Keep doing more, because it's through that doing, as long as you are introspective and you can audit what you've been doing, look at the data, look at, okay, is this serving me well, etc. It compounds. Nothing beats it. You can learn 1,000 things, but there's someone who doesn't know very much, but they have audacity. Especially, like, I've noticed with women and men, that's the difference. Like, men, they won't have studied as much as women. Women can be so educated, but they will be further. And I know someone will want to say it's misogyny, it's a patriarchal world, but sometimes it's just that they took action when you were just thinking. You were just pondering. You were just scared. You know? This is my experience as someone who has been able to scale my social media management business. I've helped other people grow their business. I've built brands. Like, I do this. I understand. I got into the game young. I didn't go to uni. I went straight into the field. And you really learn so much. Get out your house and really get to learn life. As always, I have all my resources and my socials in my bio, and I will see you in the next video.